Hello, everybody. Once again, we're here to do sort of an Insta review after the movie, moments after seeing, and guys, help me with the title.
Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
See, I keep leaving out the legend part. All right, it may sound strange to you, but this is actually the new big Marvel movie. Yes, this is the next movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I realize it's coming from a comics book that most of us don't know. I sure didn't. Hadn't really heard too much about it. So why don't we just go? Well, first let me introduce our folks, or let them introduce them, going this way and down.
I'm Adam Austin, writer for the Film Yap.
I'm Emily Wheeler. I'm a writer at Film Inquiry.
And I'm Omar Brito, and I occasionally contribute to the Film Yap.
And I'm Chris Lloyd, and you probably know me because I always do these annoying things. Well, let's just start off. Emily, why don't we start with you? Were you familiar with this Marvel property before, and what did you think of the movie?
I was not familiar with this at all. We have moved way into comic book characters that I have never even heard of. So, did I understand everything that they were trying to build world-wise? No, probably because I was going in completely in the dark. But overall, I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I have most MCU movies recently.
Yeah, I know, because you've not been too high on the MCU in general. I think compared to most critics, you've been a little more skeptical.
Right. Me saying that this is the best MCU movie I've seen in a while is not a high bar, but I will stick to that.
Okay. Omar, what about you?
I was not familiar with this character whatsoever. I have a passing knowledge of some of the characters in the movie, but yes, I do not know this character. I don't know any of the background. I did know the Iron Man 2 reference with the Mandarin. That was kind of a nice little Easter egg there. But yes, I did enjoy the movie. It was kind of a Marvel movie. It hit all the notes.
McMarvel movie?
Yeah, you kind of know what you're going to get. I'm also not always the highest when it comes to Marvel movies. I think sometimes they follow a script, and you get action, drama, and it kind of gets a little boring once in a while, but I enjoyed it for what they tried to do. The world building was great, the fighting scenes were fantastic, and you sympathize with the characters.
Adam, what did you think of the fight scenes? Very martial arts heavy in this, which I'll admit, when I get too much of the kick you, kick me kind of stuff, I start to kind of phase out. But what about you?
So this is where we might disagree, Chris. So
Good.
Last Marvel movie, you and I didn't see eye to eye on Black Widow.
Right.
I thought a character without superpowers like Black Widow should have had more hand-to-hand combat. Instead, they relied a lot on CGI. Now this movie, there is a ton of CGI, there's a ton of special effects, but they do have some real fight choreography, and you can tell that for at least some of the shots and scenes that the actual actors are making an attempt to do some of their own stunts. There could be some of the fake superimposed face, but for the most part, it wasn't like old school Buffy the Vampire Slayer where they cut so far away and it's a bad wig. It wasn't like that. You could tell there was at least trying to be the actor. Now, one thing you were talking about, the character, I did some research because I had never heard of this character before on Wikipedia. Apparently, the story that they did is really not that based in the comics.
Right.
And one of the reasons is the comics they weren't that culturally sensitive.
Oh.
You mean Fu Manchu?
Yes, Fu
Oh,
Manchu
no.
was the villain in the comics,
Right.
who they don't legally have the rights to, and is kind of racially a stereotype. So they went in a different direction. I think the direction they went in honors the Asian culture without becoming patronizing. I think it was probably the best world building I've seen, not as good as, but since probably Black Panther, where they created a world, they did a good job. I would agree with Emily. I've been down on some of the MCU, although I loved Endgame. This, to me, I think sets a new path for the Marvel Universe, while Black Widow kind of was looking at the past.
Right.
This is saying, you know what? We're going to shake it up. We've already done the big blowout. You can't top it movie. Let's move in a new direction. I thought they did a good job.
Emily, what did you think about? I was struck watching it just how much, it seemed like it was like Americans trying to make an Asian martial arts special effects epic. About half the movie is it Chinese, I think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, none of us know.
Yeah, I believe Chinese.
Speaking
Yes.
of culturally
Well,
insensitive,
Chinese isn't
Well,
a language.
yeah.
well, there's Mandarin
And Cantonese.
and Cantonese.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's
Thank
the
you.
correct
So, see
answer.
that?
Yes.
Now
There we go.
there's some
There we
cultural
go.
sensitivity. But what was your take on it? I mean, do you think American audiences are going to have a little bit of a cultural disconnect with this?
I don't think there's going to be a cultural disconnect with this, really. I mean, everything that they're playing with is going to be pretty familiar to an American audience. They're not digging in too deep. They've really Americanized things, quote unquote, quite a bit.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't have any trouble with that. I actually liked the fact that they moved towards more martial arts and things like that. Kind of like what you were saying. Recently, the MCU has been doing these big CGI-laden battles, and it just kind of gets boring. I like that it went a little smaller this time, and I liked especially for the first half of the movie, when we weren't really dealing with a bunch of people with superpowers, we were just dealing with people kind of doing martial arts with each other.
Yeah. Omar, what was your take on the cast? So I don't think these are going to be a lot of names that are very familiar to people. There's some older Asian actors, that, like Michelle Yu, I think it's pronounced her name, Tony Leung. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing these
Yeah.
right.
These are all wrong, probably. Chris.
Yeah, but we were actually practicing these before we started, so sorry guys. I think he's Canadian actor who plays the main role. Is it Simu Liu?
Simu Liu, yeah.
So obviously, probably not household names to most of you, but what did you think of the cast in general? I should also mention Awkwafina.
Well, I think they all played their parts really great. And Awkwafina is actually, I think she's like a bridge, because her character doesn't speak
Right.
Chinese.
A little smatterings, yeah.
Yes, and so this is probably the first Marvel movie with subtitles. I mean, half the movie's subtitles.
Yeah.
Is there any other that you can think of that's subtitles? So I think, even though I've never heard of the main actor, he did a great, fantastic job. And you have somebody like Michelle Yeoh.
Michelle
I think
Yeoh.
it's Yo.
Yeah, I
I think
think-
it's Yo.
Yeah, Yeoh and Tony Leung.
I think it's Loom.
I mean, he's a superstar in
Oh yeah.
Asian
Yeah.
cinema.
Oh,
So
yeah.
no, it's fantastic. I don't want to spoil who else is in it, but yeah, I think all the actors that were in it were fantastic. I don't have any complaints about the acting. The acting was great.
I would
Alright.
say though, like these may not be big stars to us,
Absolutely.
but
Right.
now the box office is international.
Absolutely.
Do you get the sense with this movie?
They're trying to get that Chinese box
I'm
office.
trying not to be cynical, but this movie is made less for American audiences and more for the international
But at least
market.
it felt authentic. It wasn't like what some of the Iron Man movies where they're like, oh my God, they're going to blow up a bomb in Hong Kong, one of the biggest box offices we could go to, and it just felt forced. The only thing that really felt forced in this movie were the Marvel cameos. There's about, and not to spoil anything, there are a few cameos, and they're not big name actors. I'm sorry, Robert Downey Jr. is not coming back. But the characters they do put in, they didn't really feel organic to the plot. They were really shoehorned in there.
Yeah.
But I still enjoyed it.
We should say most of them are kind of in the Easter eggs, which are they're in those as the credits roll thing. Don't leave, because there's a couple of them, including right at the end. What about your beefs? Any big beefs with the movie guy? The guys, anything that really just stood out? You're like, I didn't care for that. My thing was Awkwafina. I think she's great in small doses, repeating small doses. I don't think we're giving anything too much away, because we mentioned they bring back the Mandarin character played by Ben Kingsley, so he's in this. And he comes back and it's fun, and then the movie just misplaces him for about 45 minutes, and we see him again, and it's oh yeah, I forgot Ben Kingsley's in this movie. But those were kind of my biggest ones, and they're not huge. Anything really stood out for you?
I mean, kind of what you were saying, the MCU has a formula. They aren't varying from that formula too much. It gets much more heavy onto the MCU formula towards the end, and that kind of lost momentum for me.
Yeah.
There's one CGI character that is a little too reminiscent of a Porg, if you've seen any of the Star Wars movies. And when that happened, I said, oh, well, I hope this cute little furry character doesn't become the Jar Jar of the Marvel Universe. We start plugging those in.
Okay.
No, I didn't have anything. I was I enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah.
It was an action movie that you haven't seen before.
Yeah, someone the studio rep was asking me. I said it's kind of like middle lower Marvel. So I would put it kind of like in between the line between the bottom third and middle third of the Marvel Cinematic Universe for me. But anyway,
Where would you put it in the DC Cinematic Universe, Chris? Like one or two?
Immediately moves towards the top.
I actually like Justice League, the first cut, so I'm already in the minority on that. All right, but anyway, thank you guys, and we'll actually be posting this pretty early because Disney/Marvel showed us the movie to us super early, so you'll actually get to see this like almost a week and a half or so before it comes out. So hopefully you can build anticipation for
Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Thank you. I actually practiced this before, believe it or not. Thanks, guys.